Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Millie's Baseside Chats, where we are live streaming to bring some calm to the chaos of your PCS. Every week we interview duty station experts, military spouses, and just general rock star amazing people to bring you some insights and expertise that might help you along your way. Usually that's through a PCS. Sometimes it's just through other facets of military life, but we want to make sure that you have all of the resources to do this thing well. So if you're joining us live today, please feel free to engage in the conversation. We would love to add your voice. If you are catching this on the replay, go ahead and throw hashtag replay in the comments so we can circle back and welcome you to the conversation. If you have tidbits or nuggets or questions specifically, go ahead and throw those in so we can tackle everything that you need to know. And today's conversation is an exciting one because it has a lot to do with one of the core things that we try to alleviate the stress of here at Millie. So today we're going to be talking about being a military landlord. A lot of times this happens accidentally. Maybe you buy a house, you think you're going to settle for a second. This has happened to us a couple of times. And then you have to PCS. Imagine that. Uncle Sam has needs elsewhere and you have to pack up and go. So you're faced with this situation of having to now rent out your house or try to scramble and sell it. You have to really evaluate either option, but a lot of times, a lot of folks have figured out that you can actually start to accrue some wealth and invest in yourselves if you do it smartly. So we want to tackle that topic today, and I'm excited to bring on our guest. Her name is Nicole Gilbert, and she has been doing this thing really well. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Nicole, and then I'll bring her on and let her introduce herself. But Nicole is actually one of our clients. She has been a fan of MILLIE Scouts because she thinks that MILLIE Scouts have been able to help her actually do this military landlord thing that she's doing so well. So to give you an idea, she has 7 properties, you guys, and they're in 5 different states. The closest property to where she actually lives, she's up at West Point right now, the closest property is 6 hours away. So how in the world do you do that when you don't live near your property? So that's all the things we're going to talk about today. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you guys to my new best friend. This is Nicole Gilbert. Hey, Nicole.
Hi! You have no idea, I'm fangirling right now. I'm like, Kelly thinks I'm her best friend.
So I want to give a shout out. I see Amy Bouchette's in the comments. Hey, Amy, thanks for joining us. And Gala, Bird and Hammer. You guys, Gala's here, and I'm excited that she is around in the comments to be able to answer questions, tag things, tag resources. Gala is our scout director. So you have a tremendous asset with us right here today. Thanks for watching, Gala. Okay, Nicole. Take a second, introduce yourself, tell us about your military affiliation, kind of like how long you've been doing this, and then we will jump right into all of the questions that I have for you, and I'm sure our folks watching will have some questions as well.
Awesome.
Okay, go ahead.
So my name is Nicole Gilbert. My husband and I have been together for about 10 years. We have 3 small kids. We have lived kind of all over the place. My husband loves to be that guy to drop the packet and get to the next place and the next place. So we move pretty frequently. We started our landlord journey when we were stationed at JBLM. And we were there for a very short period of time, so short that it really didn't make sense to sell at that point, which is when we decided, okay, now we're going to be landlords. And we kind of put our toe in the water. We started with property managers, and slowly over time, as things have gotten better, we've gotten more knowledgeable, and we've taken the help of people like MILLIE Scouts and fellow military spouses to kind of help us along the way. We've been able to kind of grow and do a lot more on our own, and it's been kind of really exciting to see kind of where we're going now.
So the first time we had a property that we left and wanted to keep because we hadn't paid down the equity enough to really make any money on it. We didn't want to be in a situation that's the house is upside down. We hired a management company to manage the property for us because we were going across the country, and we just could not fathom doing it on our own. So can you talk to me a little bit about how your transition from, actually, you know what? Let's start with, what does a property manager do? And then what did you realize that you could then do yourself?
So, I mean, the great thing is a property manager sounds fabulous when you're first starting out because there's this outside entity who's coming in. They're going to screen tenants. They're going to take pictures of your property. They're going to do the walkthroughs. They're going to, work with your HOA, send payments to your HOA, make sure that everything's going to escrow appropriately. You're getting tax paperwork appropriate. They're kind of doing all of the paperwork for you, and you just have to kind of give them your bank account and say, hey, on the 15th, can you make sure the money gets there? And they do all of that, and it's wonderful. But at the same time, every month you're paying them a portion, usually a percentage, or at least about $100 a month per property. And over time, you realize that there's a lot of resources out there that if you're willing to do a little bit of bootstrapping and a little bit of extra time out of your own personal time, you can use those different resources to cover all of the bases that your property manager does. And there's also a lot of reading that has to go into that, personal knowledge. But once you wrap your head around it, the savings and the value is just extraordinary.
So I think that's a key point too, is identifying whether or not this is like a bail you out in a pinch situation, or you actually want to tackle this as a business. So tell me a little bit about how you guys have your business sort of structured. Like, how in the world do you have 7 properties? And they're not all single family homes that you've actually lived in. Like, you've now started accruing and accumulating properties as part of your portfolio, correct?
Yes, and so that's new and scary, and sometimes it's really good to have like some sort of partner. With me, it's my husband, and that's great because we have very different personalities, and he's more of a risk taker, and I'm like hey, can we talk about this a little bit first kind of a guy. So it's definitely new, and they're definitely working on kind of growing in that aspect. I think a big thing is, with military families in general, a lot of us are buying these houses to live in first.
I'm so glad you said that.
And then going and having them become these investment properties. Mm-hmm. And you have to really look at it as an investment before your family ever gets into it. So what you're looking for yourself and your family in your rental is not necessarily in like your personal rental is not what you're looking for in the investment property. Because while you love to live out in the country and do all these things, you have to make sure you're making the best decisions of what's going to be re-rentable for somebody else. So you have to go, and sometimes you're not living in a house that's the house that you would choose personally for your family, but it's absolutely the house you need to choose in order to build your personal wealth and to have it work for you for years to come.
To have a fun example of this, and it's personal because we did this. We didn't know any better. we ended up buying a really cute rentable property. It's this tiny little bungalow. It's like perfect for, a couple, no kid. It was great. And it ended up being a really good rental. But I thought, I want this to be like my dream house. I put in honed marble countertops in the kitchen. I literally Googled most of my maintenance things and wanted to put it in my house, and that was a problem when it came to having tenants. And then another mistake I made is I brought both my babies home to that house. Not necessarily a mistake, but I got really emotionally attached to it. So when we would go turn it over or go inspect it or get photos or see the yard or anything, it was heart-wrenching. So we're like, you just don't respect our house. We were way too tied up in it. So I think that's fantastic advice. Go in with the mindset that this is going to be a part of your business, or, something that is going to make you money in the long run, not necessarily something that you just adore and is your dream house and will make magazine covers.
Yes. So we have definitely separated ourselves from loving our house. We haven't had a home yet. That's how we think of it. We've had a great place to raise our kids and to live this wonderful military lifestyle, but our home is the 5 of us.
Yeah.
And the walls are just walls because, hopefully they end up being a fantastic home for somebody else.
Right.
And that's what we want. We want to build fantastic homes for other people.
Right. Oh, wow. That's great. Okay. So you mentioned some resources. So if someone, let's say, I polled our Facebook group earlier last night or this morning, just to see kind of where people were at. Is this something that people are just super curious about, want to know more because they want to launch into business, they want to have this portfolio like you do? I think, and judging by the responses in the group, I feel like most people are more curious. They feel like homeownership isn't something they can attain right now because of the fact that we're still active duty and still moving around. And at some duty stations, it is not wise. At some places and some markets, and depending on the trajectory of your service member's career, not wise. Hopefully you have a real estate agent that you're working with that will tell you these things. We have some that will do that for you because they've actually lived the lifestyle. Point being, if you, let's say, we bought a house somewhere. Let's say we bought a house in North Carolina, thinking we'd be here for a while, knowing that we might have to turn it into a rental eventually. But now we have surprise orders and we have to leave. And I am now looking at, crap, do I take a property manager? Do I do this myself? What are some of the things that you would recommend for people? Like, where are some starting points and what are some resources that have helped make this an easier process for you?
I would say before you even look to outside resources, you got to just run the numbers. Call 3 different property managers and see what they're charging for basic property management, finding a tenant, processing payments, and doing like basic handyman work, what they're going to charge for that. See what the comparables in your neighborhood are renting for currently and what is your mortgage. How much money are you actually going to be making? You don't necessarily, I mean, this is not a game where you're going to get rich quick.
Right.
We've had properties where we've made like $40 a month and we're like, hey, we're in the black. Like, that's great. But you really have to run those initial numbers first before I would even go outside, because sometimes, especially with operation tempos, what's going on in your personal life. Like when my husband was in command, he went overseas on a company level deployment. I was the FRG leader. I was 9 months pregnant. I gave birth on my own. Guess what? We had a property manager. I am not doing this.
Yeah. Be realistic is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would definitely look at that first. Next, I would kind of see what you could do to bootstrap it on your own if you think that this is something that you have the time commitment for. And if you want to have a little bit more wiggle room in your profit, your monthly profit. And that's where MILLIE Scouts is fantastic. We've used MILLIE Scouts for 2 of our different properties, and they have been amazing. From everything from pictures to walkthroughs to final inspections of homes. I think a lot of times people think of MILLIE Scouts as like their go-ahead to make sure they can do like a door-to-door move, which is fantastic, but you can use them to run your business as well. And I mean, that's golden. And then also just your friends. And when I say friends, I mean like people that you genuinely trust, people who work in the business. I know there's a lot of military spouses out there who are real estate agents. We have a very good friend of ours who we've been with at several duty stations, and she was a real estate agent when we were in Clarksville, and she helped us so much. She did so many things for us, and which is great. I think don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to share your story and what you're trying to do, because I think you'd be amazed with all of the resources that are already in your lap that you're just not taking advantage of yet.
Yeah, that's true. So I always would tell people too, like, hey, we're leaving, but we're keeping the house. Like, it's still ours. Like, if you drive past our house and see something out of place, let us know. You know what I mean? Just like having people, even like, you know, the locals that don't necessarily move around like we do. Like, hey, you still have my number. Like, keep an eye on the place. Make sure, like, property managers they usually have like 60 to 80 properties that they're managing at any one point in time. So this is another thing that I hear a lot from people, and that I personally experienced, was that I didn't feel like there was enough time devoted to me and my account, my property. I was paying them every month. And they were there in a pinch, right? Like, they were there to handle things. But when you really did the numbers, like, I was paying them 10% for 3 years.
And they're not necessarily proactive. They're great at putting out fires, but they're not good at.
And they're great for handling like evictions and sticky situations. And they've got, you know, really good leases usually, you know, and those are some things that you guys, if you're going to do this, you need to take really seriously, and probably even invest in some legal advice. As far as your leases go, it varies by state. These are all things that you really need to dig in. But yeah, so like, I don't know, I just would get annoyed, you know, that they didn't, there was something that I felt was urgent, but wasn't. So I'm like,
and eyes on the ground are huge. We've actually used MILLIE Scouts to just do semi-annual walkthroughs of the house. So in Clarksville, we sent a MILLIE Scout through 6 months through a lease just to kind of make sure everything's okay. Our tenants were great with it. We, you know, making sure that vents got opened and shut seasonally to allow the heating and cooling systems to work properly. You know, making sure that the amount of dogs that were on the lease were still the amount of dogs that were there. Like, all those little things that, I mean, it's maybe a 15, 20-minute job for a MILLIE Scout, but that halfway through a lease can make all the difference, especially with a new tenant. And it helps alleviate a lot of your worries and concerns, because that's one thing, you're going to have worries and concerns. It's a big investment for you. It's something that you're kind of, once somebody's in there, you kind of are almost letting go and letting God kind of. So
Yeah. And then honestly, the more you get into it too, you can join all the groups where there's tons of really great groups out there for
yeah,
landlording and things like that. But I feel like the only time you see stuff is when there's bad stuff happening. Like, it's horrifying, some of the
oh,
situations.
horrifying.
Like, grit the popcorn and just pray that it doesn't happen to you kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to be said, though, also with being proactive and over
Yes.
communicating and having a good relationship with your tenant, doing a really good job at pre-screening who you're letting into
Yeah.
your home. You know, do they meet your metrics? Figure out your metrics before you get into this. What credit scores do we find acceptable? That sort of thing. And then, yeah, just letting your tenant know, like, nope, I don't live here. You know, I live overseas even. I mean, we have some overseas homeowners that use MILLIE Scouts. And same, just like you, like, it wouldn't be as doable. You know, I'm sure you could pull favors from friends and whatnot, but if you think about it, you're hiring a person to do an objective task for you, and they're gonna, you know, it's an exchange. There's money given for their time, like, so it's very professional. It's very clean. You're not, you know, imposing on anyone. And one thing that I just want to clarify too is that our scouts are not property managers. So these are two very different things. Our scouts are military spouses that we vet. They're independent contractors, and you hire them by task. So their whole entire job is to fact find for you. And like Nicole already mentioned, this could be used on either end or either need, right? So it could be that you are PCSing somewhere and want to rent a property but can't get there to see it. They can go and find some facts for you. They can FaceTime. They can take photos. They can tell you what's across the street, you know, that the landlord maybe didn't put in the listing. And then you can also use this as a property owner to be able to keep tabs on your property. So we had one situation where the scout noticed a leak or something, and she's not an inspector. Like, that's not her deal. Like, you know, she's not trying to say, hey, you got this and this going on. But she was able to notify the landlord, let them know, hey, I don't know, maybe check this out. Here's a photo. Do with it what you will, but here's a photo. And they were able to actually, like, there was a leak in the fridge, and they were able to pull stuff out and hopefully resolve the situation during a turnover. It was during a walkout or a walkthrough. What do you want to try? Move out walkthrough. And they were able to get that resolved instead of just turning the property over and not even noticing it, right? Like, because that could have happened.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, with the inspections, I always tell our tenants that we're going to have this third party individual go through, but that they don't speak for us. They can't really answer any specific questions, but that they can be a conduit and a middleman. So what they do is they take a walkthrough video for us so that we can kind of get a feel of what's actually in the house, because sometimes you get a little bit more out of motion than still shots, and then taking full still shots throughout the whole home, and then usually like a little write-up blurb, just like what they thought, kind of a little opinion-wise, and then that's it. And then we just take all of that information. They're nothing but, you know, surveillance recon kind of people for us. And we so just use the information and put it out there.
They're not determining how much rent or how much of the deposit you're keeping, none of that stuff. They're just literally like, they're giving you information so that you can make informed decisions based on your situation. And we usually encourage people to only use scouts if it's like a copacetic relationship between the landlord and tenant. Like, if you've got some crazy stuff going on, like the stuff in the Facebook groups, you might need a professional to come in. And
not only that, but I think it's wise, especially if you have a difficult situation, not only because you shouldn't put the MILLIE Scouts in those situations, but also that's something that you need to have a little bit more personal hands-on with. You need to be willing to kind of deal with situations head on. And if you're not willing to deal with situations head on, by no means does that mean you shouldn't be a landlord, but maybe you'd be better off with a property manager.
Right. Totally. Yeah, that's great advice. I hear that a lot. And for the most part, I mean, we've occasionally had scouts that have, you know, gone into situations that were maybe not amazing. And we always tell them, like, just walk away. Like, if it's not, if the tenant doesn't know you're coming, like, that's not on you. You know, you need to just.
If it's a situation that I would personally feel uncomfortable somebody putting me in, I'm not going to put somebody into that situation.
Right. Yeah, and our scouts are super savvy like that. They know, and I think they typically go above and beyond for just about any situation. Yeah.
I've had nothing but awesome experiences.
So let's do like specific shout outs. I know you've worked with Sona at JBLM. I will drop her link in the comments. So if you guys have property or have anywhere,
She is fantastic, especially like if you need photos, beautiful photography,
cool.
Which was great because it's kind of hard to find somebody with that skill set. And then we were also trying to do it kind of not necessarily on the cheap, but more inexpensively than hiring a full professional real estate photographer. So, I mean, she did a fantastic job. And then she was a great person to do like walkthroughs and open houses for our home to get it rented for us. It was wonderful.
I love that. Yeah. And so you guys, and you can get really creative too with the ways in which you hire a scout. So you can, like, if you need to just swap keys out, if we've had so many like awesome job requests that don't typically fall under the radar of just like, walkthroughs or move in, move out, walk inspections. Like they could be any kind of thing, so long as they're available to do it. So just have those conversations, like just reach out and say, hey, what can you help me with? What's in your skill set? What's in your wheelhouse? And here, Sona's got photography sort of in her.
So we did the photography, and then we went through and we did, custom task with her. And under custom task, we had her run an open house for an afternoon. So we had her for like 4 hours, and we scheduled people to come through the house. And all she really did was hand out the flyer and answer specific questions about like how many bedrooms are there, how many bathrooms are there, that kind of stuff. But anything beyond that, she just gave them our contact information, and we were able to follow up afterwards with that. But
so cool. And I believe you used Carolyn in Tennessee, and I'm thinking Carolyn has moved on, and we love her still.
Yes, she's the one who's done our walkthroughs, and she was fantastic. And I was sad to see her go. We were like, oh,
I know. We root for her. She got a great gig. So
I know. I say bummer for me, but yay.
I know. So what advice would you give someone who's considering maybe making the move from a property manager to self-managing?
So I hope there's no property managers listening, but I would say
we're not trying to dissuade you from gut, but let's say this is something
I'm not trying to dissuade you from using a property manager if you like it, but I would say kind of like low key stalk them a little, see exactly what they're doing, like take a few months and really like see what their front desk is doing for you, what your statements are looking like, how often they're looking into the property, because I mean, they're in business for a reason. You picked them for a reason. And so there's certain things that they're already doing that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to figure out how you could do that too. And then you can add in the things that you feel like you're missing after that. But I think one of the best things you could do is just to really study what your property manager is already doing for you in your location, because every location and house is a little bit different as well.
Totally. How do you feel like your client or your tenants appreciate having a direct line to you versus having to go through a property manager? Like, how do you feel like that's influenced your tenant-landlord relationships?
I think in some ways it's been awesome, and in some ways it's been a little bit difficult. I think there's a lot of different personalities, and I think sometimes when people are looking for a home, especially when they see that it's a privately owned home and privately managed, you sometimes have to kind of deal with some looky-loos and things of that nature. Maybe not necessarily the most desirable tenant that you're looking for are going to be reaching out to you a little bit more often. But once you do find the correct tenant, it's an amazing situation, because I found that if any issues do happen in our home, they get addressed a lot more quickly because they're able to just contact us directly. Some people don't want to deal with larger businesses. So, if they see a leak on their garbage disposal, I can get a text and it says, hey, our garbage disposal is leaking, and I can immediately handle that. Where with the property management, they're going to wait till Monday through Friday to call.
You got to call me.
The property manager is going to call a handyman, and then the handyman's going to call the property manager back, and then the property manager is going to call the tenant back, and then the tenant's going to call me because that's not going to work for them, and then I have to start the process over again. And 2 weeks later, the leak is going to get addressed. If it's not something that is detrimental to the living situation, it's going to take a little while to get done. And that can be frustrating because what is technically not a huge deal, a little bit of a leak here or there where it can be fixed pretty quickly, but it's not going to harm the home. It's still going to stress you out as the owner.
Yeah, always. Yeah, because what else are they not reporting? So you touched on this a minute ago, and I'd love to come back to it. So when you're looking at your deciding points between property manager and self-managing. You kind of alluded
Mhm.
to the fact that you could keep some things that they're doing well,
Mhm.
and then maybe supplement otherwise. And I know that some companies, not all of them, but some companies do like a la carte sort of services.
Yes, like the partial ditty
Yeah.
of property management.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and what kind of
Um,
questions people can ask in order to determine whether or not that's an option?
Yeah, so we've actually done that at some of our properties before. Sometimes my husband has come on orders because he's like that guy, and we've got 10 days to move kind of a thing, because he's super cool like that. And so we've actually gotten property managers who all they do is list and place tenants, and then I take over everything after that. And which is great because then I'm not dealing with running the credits, reading the applications, verifying income, doing the walkthrough. Sometimes you're like, I don't have time to do the walkthrough because I'm packing boxes and I don't want anybody walking through this house right now, but it would be great if next Saturday could walk through, even if I'm going to be somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Utah in a minivan. So
who's been
um,
there? Yeah.
so I mean, that I think is the hugest thing, is like getting them to place the tenant, because after that you can then accept the payments on your own. You're not paying them a monthly fee.
Right.
You do pay them a lump sum up front. Usually it's equal to 1 month's rent. Hopefully you have wisely gone into it and have a little bit of padding of a couple of months rent to kind of help you with those situations that might arise. But I would say that's probably the biggest and best a la carte option that you can do. And then you could always do it conversely. You find an awesome tenant, somebody who's going to come into your house and treat it well, but maybe you're overseas, you don't have the option of processing payments easily, and then they could just be the person who gets the handyman out there, make sure that the money hits your bank account when it needs to hit your bank account, and then instead of paying them up front, you do pay that monthly fee. So I mean, there's a lot of little things that they can do for you, and I would say a lot of property managers offer it because they'd rather help. Really, they'd rather help a little bit. It's easier for them to manage than being the sole contact sometimes.
Interesting.
So a lot of places do like a little, okay, we could do this, and knowing it's kind of like a one-off and it's quick for them.
And just think about it too. Like they have a market. Like they have the audience to market the property to. So that's huge, right? The more people you can showcase the property to could impact how much you're able to ask for rent, could impact the quality of the tenants who are seeing the property, that sort of thing. They also go through applications day in, day out. Like this is what they do. So they can spot the red flags, or they can spot the things that are like, oh, this would be a good tenant. And then photographers. They have
larger property managers, also management companies, usually have several different managers, and a lot of times they will specialize in different things. And so there's the guy who knows how to get and where to find the people who want to live on Country Stretch. There's the guy who, like, he's the Fort Campbell Boulevard guy, and he's going to get you, everything you need in those, track home kind of a thing. So sometimes that really helps too, because you get somebody who just really knows and is like, you know what, I manage 10 houses on the same street. I know exactly what you're looking for. And I've got this family who's looking for exactly what you've got. And sometimes that's just necessary because you're just like, I cannot have this house be empty past the 15th. Like it cannot happen. And that's something quick that can be very helpful.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm trying to put a comment on the screen, but it just took over.
That's
Jen?
okay. It's like, it's easier for me to read.
I'm sorry, y'all. My computer just wigged out. Okay. So let me see if I can come back. There we go. Okay. So Jen, hey Jen, thanks for watching. Says, I'm a big fan of letting a neutral party place the tenant. This can be it can be a time-consuming effort, like you've already mentioned, going through applications, and also like mentally time-consuming. Like, am I making the right choice? Like, it's really it's overwhelming sometimes. She says it can be easy to get sucked into other stories and taking unnecessary risks that a manager might save you from.
Yes, I think also, some people will try to pull on heartstrings, and that can get you in not great situations. And also personally, especially like you were saying, like the house that you brought your babies home to. Yeah. So we have 3 houses that we bought our babies home to. And I do not want to know who is living in that house. I don't want to know.
It's true. It's true. Oh my gosh, that house. So we had, I want to say the property manager, I feel like they involved us a little too much because I got invested kind of emotionally in who they were choosing. But what it was is there was an applicant who had terrible credit, like shot. And they were like, listen, they've got bad credit, but they know they have bad credit and they have cash for like 6 months, but want to sign a 2-year lease. And I was like, who has cash for like 6 months rent? That's not nothing. I'm like, oh my God. I don't know. It was really like unnerving for me. And I didn't even want to be involved in that decision because I probably would have said no a lot sooner. Although, you know, they were able to tell me like, you know, they had this job and they did this and like, it was really tough. And I just didn't want to be included. Like I didn't want to be a part of that. But if you're doing it yourself, you have to be, and you're right. You gotta be prepared for that. Like the situations, and there's a balance, you know, it's just how much risk are you willing to assume. But doing the check-ins every 6 months or so, you can write that into your lease. If you're taking a risk, hey, I've got my girl Sona in JBLM and she's going to come check on the house every 6 months. So you're not getting away with anything, right? Like whether it's a true story or a not true story or whatever the case is, at least you know you've got eyes on the property and you kind of have your radar up until they prove you otherwise.
And you set expectations. I think that's a huge thing for both you as the landlord and the future tenant is when you set expectations up front and they're expecting somebody to come check in on a few months or they're expecting to hear from you however often, they kind of mind their P's and Q's a little easier. And also just that can sometimes scare away the bad ones.
It's true.
So,
I can't be cooking math if somebody's coming in.
Yeah. Guess that'll be just can't go out front without HOA.
Darn. Yeah, no, that's so funny. Okay. What other parting words of advice, affirmations, encouragement might you have for someone who, whether they're intentional or not intentional about being a landlord? What are your biggest kind of points of advice?
I think the biggest thing is to believe in yourself and your capabilities, because I 100% believe that everybody in this military space deserves to grow something for their own. And just because Uncle Sam is telling you that you have to keep on moving on, you do not need to not build your own personal wealth, whether it be through owning your own business, owning your own home. So just put the faith in yourself, and I guarantee you, read some books, you could do it. You could
love that.
Really do it.
Speaking of, we have an ebook. It's free, you guys, on being a military landlord. So go check that out over on the site. We'll drop a link in the comments. It's a good place to get started. It's not everything, but it's a lot. And it's definitely something that'll at least sort of kind of get your head wrapped around whether or not this is something you think you can tackle. But we're telling you probably can. And also, Nicole's here.
Hey!
In the comments, and we're here, and this video is not going anywhere, so you can always visit this back and come, you know, ask your questions or whatnot here in the comments. Go ahead and turn on the notifications for it if you want, but get engaged with the conversation. Join our group. Join you know, a whole group of like-minded people who are in similar situations to you. So it's just all information is power, so get your hands on as much of it as you can. Okay. Absolutely. Where can everybody find you, Nicole? Give us all your socials, websites, all the good stuff.
So if you're on Instagram, you can get me at thenicolegilbert.com or at the Nicole Gilbert. I don't know these names.
We'll drop
on
the links.
Facebook, I am at facebook.com/the Nicole Gilbert. And if you want to email me directly, thenicolegilbert@gmail.com if you have any kind of questions. I love answering questions and I love helping people. And I've got 3 small children and I need adult conversation. So
this is my adult conversation. I'm so happy.
So I was like, hey, I get to talk to Kelly today.
This is my favorite part of the week. I love Wednesdays. We didn't give your website, the intentional landlord.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that, and then what's the actual URL is.
Okay, so the actual URL is theintentionallandlord.com because it was a mouthful, the intentional landlord.
Yeah.
And our mission currently is to just inform military members. And by the way, the website is just getting up and running now. So if you get like a little scream, it's because like I haven't clicked the go button on Bluehost yet.
Oh, come on, do that.
I know.
All right, then I'm going to hold off putting the link up. You come back.
Yeah.
I'm holding you accountable. Come back and drop your link when you're ready.
because we are going to be putting together digital workshops for you guys. You guys can go into kind of self-paced, self-learning. There will be modules in there for you so you can walk yourself through everything through researching VA loans, researching property management, researching how to do it yourself, leases, multi-state LLCs, kind of everything that you need to know step by step by step to go from, one owner and you're living in it to multi-homes all over the country and how you can grow. And we think everybody can do what we can do. So we want to help those by putting that information out there for you.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it.
Yay.
Let us know when you're done and ready for it.
I will.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your time. I appreciate you. Thank you for believing in our MILLIE Scouts. I can't say thank you enough for that. I just want to scream from the rooftops how amazing they are and what an awesome asset they are at helping people stay informed, empowered, and engaged with whatever their situation is, to be able to, like you said, to take back some of the agency. I mean, we often just feel like we're kind of drifting in the wind and being told to go here and told to go there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be so like passive. You can actually take charge and take control of your destiny. Right? You like that? Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I see so many friends in the comments. I really appreciate you guys. If you know someone that is thinking about becoming a landlord, or maybe someone that's thinking about broadening or expanding their portfolio, this would be a great place to send them. So tag them in the comments, send this video, share this video. If you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You'll be able to catch the weekly episodes here on the replay. And then be sure to, share the love. If you know somebody that is moving and would love to be involved in an encouraging and empowering community, we've got a group, Moving the MILLIE Way. Should be somewhere below. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.